What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We talk the wild world of sports, wagering, and just having a good time. SJ, it was a fairly eventful weekend, I guess, with some other types of things. We got away from our, I guess, traditional, basketball, football, college rank stuff, but we did have the Masters. We had a big fight card over the weekend, so still some good action for folks out there.
Yeah, maybe not as I guess depends what you're watching. Not quite the long hours that we were used to with that tournament there. March Madness kind of gets you in early and keeps you up late. So maybe not the extended period, but enough entertainment out there. And we even did some pretty good plays there, and had a little the cushion to our wallets there.
Yeah, exactly. That's always a good thing. We'll touch on that here in just a moment. How our plays went the weekend, a couple of topics related to that stuff. And then we do have a couple of college football related things to talk about here. I'm sure one of those topics you probably are aware of because you've been hearing about it all over the media here at the end of the week. But we'll get into that here in just a little while. As we get rolling, we always like to give a little nod to some beverages as well. And, of course, I gave the preface last time. I'm on my little experimental hiatus here from the alcohol world. But I did want to talk about some things. So I'll do that here in a moment. But SJ, I think maybe it might be a kind of a standard week for you over there.
Yeah, nothing too exciting. Just one of those days you're like, I'm just gonna clean out what do you have, a garage fridge, basement fridge, whatever. So just got some, everyday domestics, couple lagers here. But what I did want to talk about is, I guess this might lead into maybe what you're going to bring up, just discussing a beverage of a favorite and something that maybe new. This for me, this was something new, kind of new-ish, I guess you could say. But I went to a local establishment, and they had what they were called a PB&J old fashioned. And so like right away, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, even if you don't like something like that, I'm like, okay, you kind of put it PB&J on anything like kind of outlandish. I'm at least going to be interested and see, like, maybe there's something I might like. But so it's what they do is they make an old fashioned with peanut butter whiskey. And I was a little skeptical just because, like, I'm a whiskey drinker. Like, that'd be probably my, that and my tequila would be like my liquors of choice, my favorite. There, I guess. I mean, to me, I'm whiskey, bourbon, rye. I'm kind of. I know there's a little difference. I'm not that hoity guy though. That's gonna, say this is better than this or better. I like all that. I'm considering those all the same in my mind. I know there's subtle differences there, but either way. So that's kind of why I just classify those the same. So I usually just call it whiskey, even if it is bourbon or rye. I apologize to those aficionados out there, but I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good palate. I'm just not so stuffy where I'm going to call somebody on it. You like what you like. So, yeah. But either way, I'm a big whiskey guy. So I'm like, I don't want peanut, but I want to taste the whiskey. If it's something you like maybe you're a vodka guy or something, you want like Stoli or, something just straight. You don't want this, pineapple, banana, strawberry. You want the vodka. So this kind of same concept. Like, I want to taste the whiskey, but I'm like, man, there's not many places I've seen that offer a drink like this. And, I got to try it. And so basically what they did, like I said, is they do an old fashioned with the peanut butter whiskey, and then they give you a sidecar of like the sweet red that's in house, their wine. So you kind of just sit back and forth between the two. You can mix them, but either way, all in all, is I'll definitely be getting that again, and I'd recommend it if anybody comes across that drink. Go ahead and order yourself one. It's a pretty good bang for your buck, and also just really easy to drink, even if you're not someone that likes wine or whiskey that much. Yeah. It goes, it kills a lot of that, which for me, I was like, I don't want to kill it, but I still enjoyed it. So it's not the worst thing either, whichever way you're coming at it from. And it's like I said, pretty good bang for your buck there. You'll be feeling pretty nice after that.
Yeah. Sounds delicious. And, I think one thing too, when it comes to stuff like that, that does kind of grab people's attention is you kind of get a little bit of that like experience mixed in there. You're sipping two things. It's like you're
not just pouring something down your gullet and trying to get a buzz. You're actually like enjoying it and saying like, oh, maybe trying to pick up a flavor or two extra. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unique too. So you got a story to tell somebody. Like, hey, I tried this. This is cool. Yeah, that is a cool idea. From what you were talking to me about too, it's like that's not really like the only thing of that type that they do. They kind of are on that bandwagon a little bit.
Yeah, they had an interesting Paloma, which is a tequila cocktail, and then a spicy version of it. And
Mm.
I'm a little skeptical of that, but to me it was more of like the what do you want to call it? Accoutrements, if you will, that accompany the drink. It's not exactly the drink because I've tried, I'm sure you have too, whether it be a jalapeno beer or like a spicy margarita. There's a fine line there of,
Yeah.
executing it and not executing it. And so that's why I'm, always a little leery of that. But I mean, after this one, at least, at home, I'm even thinking about, just different kinds of whiskeys or bourbons and just kind of maybe, do a little sipping with some wines there and just kind of seeing the mix there because it gave me an idea for just your home stuff. But they also have an incredible Bloody Mary on that with andouille sausage and shrimp and I mean you can yeah, that's a nice little brunch type of thing there.
Yeah, yeah, I know, and I know exactly what you're saying. Like with that, the spicy stuff. Like, and I have recently had a couple that I really appreciated. There was a tequila that somebody gifted us that was a spicy variety, and it was actually pretty decent. Like, sometimes, like you said, it can be easy, I think, for that to go overboard, and then it's almost like I'm just drinking heat here. I'm not really
Yeah.
tasting anything else. Like that's what it is. And then of course, I've had it here recently too. Talking about it on the show, the chili buzz from Full Fledged in Council Bluffs. That one's a pretty good. Like if you want a little bit of spice in your beer, like again, one of those things you're not going to drink 12 of, but a couple, yeah, it's kind of nice, a little different kick to it. So interesting. The other thing I saw that I wanted to bring up. Somebody brought this up actually at work today because they said their wife texted them like, "Oh, I want to try these" because they saw a commercial, and I was like, "Huh, I don't know, I've never heard of that before." But apparently, obviously, you start becoming the king of the beer market. You have a little bit of room to play and have some fun. But the folks at Modelo are doing some different flavors now, I guess, of their like Chilada series. And they got some agua frescas as well that they're peddling. So I guess I would kind of being an idiot. I guess didn't really understand the like because when I think of chilada, I always think of the more of the like the michelada where you've got the the tomato's going to be involved pretty much for sure. And I guess when you're talking about a chilada in general, that doesn't have to be the case. It can just be other citrus or whatever mixed into your beer. So that's where they're going with this. Is they've got some different varieties. Of course, they have your traditional, michelada that they sell, or the chilada that's got the tomato base. But then they've got one that's the lemon and salt, or the lime and salt, and then the mango chili. Looks like there's one that's called Fresca Picante, the Sangria Picante, and then also the naranja, or the orange picosa, and then the pina picante, which of course the pineapple. So lots of different varieties there. I kind of surprised me when I stumbled upon looking at this further. But yeah, I'm intrigued. I want to try a few of them, see how they are. And it doesn't seem like it's probably going to be they're all going to be great. But out of the pack, I'm guessing there's a couple that might be pretty good during the summer.
When I mentioned I wish I liked the Bloody Marys, and that was like music to my ears or to my eyes or whatever you want to say when I stumbled upon these. The pineapple one is money. Any of the spicy ones that just have the fruit and the spice, like those are really if you're someone that doesn't care for tomato juice all that much, because that was always my thing. Like, man, I love a good you're tailgating or whatever, and you have yourself a late morning or early afternoon beer because you got to get the day going.
Yeah,
that's always kind of nice to have something like that. And it just was never been. I've tried it. I can't do the Bloody Mary, so this is definitely a nice option to have. And I'd recommend, even if you don't try them all. Like even that lime one's pretty good. It's probably a little salty for my taste, but no, those are definitely. I'd put my stamp of approval on those if you want to pass that advice along to your coworkers there.
Okay, I will let them know. Pretty interesting to me that you've got all those different varieties in that line, and then they've got the agua fresca line, which has got looks like 4 different flavors going on, which is more of a to me that's probably more so away from the beer side a little bit more. It does still say cerveza, but it's more of a splash of like real fruit. It says here, so maybe kind of a different thing going on there. More of your typical what you think of, I guess, with White Claw or whatever, those kinds of things, all those kinds of things.
I was gonna say those ones I haven't tried, but I do know Corona put out like a Refrescas line a while back, and they stopped making them unfortunately because I know there was a mango one that was it was money, like you sitting at the pool or whatever, hot day, just get you nice little kind of a cocktail in a can, or almost like
Yeah.
a free type of thing. Get it frozen, put it in the freezer for a little bit, and you have a nice afternoon there. But yeah, I have not tried those ones. I'll be interested to give those a taste or two.
Okay. Well, yeah, they're on my list here for May 1st when I'm off my experiment.
You might have to give that date book open here. I don't know how this 30 days has gone so far, but
start booking it out. I
yeah.
can't do it all at once. That'd be a bad idea. Uh, no, I'm actually I'm sipping the Bonsai, which is a sparkling water beverage. It's got the blackberry lime. My wife found this line. I don't know who the hell markets these or sells these. It's one of the the big beverage companies, I think, but they're not bad. I don't hate these ones. Some of them, you kind of just you don't really get that quality taste to it. It's got that fake thing going on. But this one's okay, so I'll live with it.
Yeah, sometimes once you open the can, there goes all the flavor right out there.
Yeah.
So,
Release into the wild. Uh, yeah. So first, let's start with the weekend. Might as well recap there because it was pretty cool. First with the fight card. I mean, I pulled up your. I always go back and pull up your tweets to make sure, kind of cross reference, see what you got going on. And I was like, oh man, he's nailing them this weekend. And it did pretty damn good job, except for the top billing on the
right.
card. But he hit everything else. So that's a good run.
Yeah, I was hopeful for. I mean, I guess it was a bit of an underdog. I think when I made the play on Lopez, he was like plus maybe like 190. I think it got up to like, well, of course, as the fight went on, it got of course, live betting went on, and that's the case. But I'll just run through the list here. We 5 out of 6, so not a bad night. God, I would have been nice to hit that sixth one though. Been a hell of a weekend. It might not I might have been calling in from a little beach or something if I'd have hit that one too. But we had Danny Ige get honestly, and this was this to me makes it like a good card. This was obviously UFC 314 in Miami there, and this is to me what made a good card because even playing the money lines, I was at least getting plus or a value that seemed worth taking that straight up. So, and that's a lot of times where it gets you is because with fights, it's if you want to make some return on your investment, more times than not, you got to make it, a prop or call it in what round, and of course that increases the difficulty. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want to at least get some return, that's kind of what you have to do. But this was the case where the matchups were close enough where we could go ahead and just pick winners. So I took Dan Ige, he won. Actually got a TKO, and I was kind of leaning there, but the dude he was fighting, get this, is like 6'3", fighting at like freaking like 145.
Whew.
So yeah. So
Little
it's
rail
kind
of
of
a
like,
fella.
is he gonna be able to like? Is he going to be able to, close the distance, or is that going to cause some issues for him? So that was kind of the thing. I was like, I better just take him to win. And it was one of those, which a couple of these were, where it's like, for the guy that won Ige that I picked, is like, is he still kind of contender, or is his like best days behind him? So is kind of that's kind of, especially with UFC, that's like their MO. It's like, we're gonna bleed every dollar we can out of this guy while he's a star,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're just gonna use him to build the next guy. Which it's not a bad strategy. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that strategy. Now, as far as the compensation, that's where the issues come in, but that's another conversation. And then another fight, Dominic Reyes, he actually won by first round knockout, and I didn't see that coming. That made him a 3-fight win streak, so that was low. This is at 205, so that was a little bit shocking as far as that goes. But him winning, of course, I wasn't too surprised as I picked him. This was probably my biggest one of the night, and this was I guess because as far as just hitting it like exactly. Gian Silva, Jean. There's been pronounced Jean, whatever. He's it's Brazilian, so there's a little bit of translation there. But Silva by knockout got that done by knockout / finish. So he got the finish. So we got that one, and then Yair Rodriguez also won just straight up on that one. This was probably like I guess the only prop that was a little bit like not necessarily nervous about it, but I was like a little bit on the fence. There was that the co-main event with Michael Chandler and Patty Pimblett. I went over 2.5 rounds. Ended up getting there not by much, but we did get there. Luckily, it was a 5 round fight. If it had been shorter, it might not have made it. And of course, I wouldn't have probably taken that. I would have went over 1.5 or something like that. But I just it was a fight where both those guys kind of, especially Chandler, he's kind of like a balls to the wall guy, and to his detriment in some cases, just doesn't have much of a. I mean, I'm sure he game plans and all that, but the strategy kind of just goes out the window once the fight starts, and he's just kind of almost just brawling. But ended up getting over 2.5 rounds, and of course we lost the main event, which ended up being a decision, so we weren't super far off. But I didn't know if Volkanovski still had it in him. I think he did, at least in this matchup. I don't know how much further he can go because he's had a couple knockouts. Anytime you're getting kicked in the head and losing consciousness, that doesn't just go away when once you wake up. It's not like okay, just you can't just hit reset like you can in the video game. So we'll see how it goes from here on out. But definitely an impressive win. But and actually mostly for the most part pretty good fights, top to bottom. We need more events like that, and I think it could stand them to maybe cut some of these in between events down. Like I know they got one coming up right here in Kansas City, and I mean, this we might have to touch on this later, but those ticket prices they're asking these days, it's not worth what they're offering you, because I think at last check for anything like legitimately decent seat, which to me, if I'm going to something, I've said on here numerous times, and I think we're kind of in the same boat. If I'm not sitting in the lower bowl, I'm watching on TV at home, and if you want to get in that section, probably about $2 these per ticket, and that's before fees. So probably won't be messing with that, unfortunately, and it kind of sucks because I mean I don't think I've missed many fights regionally. Like I've been to UFC in Omaha, Lincoln, even here in KC a couple 3 times, but just like at some point, and like I said, maybe we talk about this here. I know we've touched on it before with just even college football. It's like you just gotta. It's not like I'm making some I'm making some change in the industry or I'm doing some greater. But personally, like I can't rationalize spending that much money, between a couple of tickets. If you go with somebody $500 on that, just like doesn't seem wise, especially with we're not getting into all this stuff, but economically speaking, these days,
Yeah.
we got there's other things to buy out there. It's just I don't see how you can, be like, oh, that I felt like I think my money was spent well. There's not much I could spend a couple $100 on and be like, I'm glad I spent that. Besides, like, maybe a bill or a new something for the house or something like that. Like, there's not, you pay something off, or you buy yourself whatever, a new set of clubs or a new table or something like that. Like, okay, then it's but to go sit in a uncomfortable seat with some fat dude saying he can knock everybody out in the ring. I don't know if that's.
Yeah.
I don't think that seems like a good investment. But and it sucks because I'd love to go, and it's a fun time. I would tell people even who's never don't even like fights or been to fights, boxing, UFC, whatever. It's like I don't know. It's kind of almost like an what do you call it? Like it's like an event, like almost like a surreal experience, because with the way they do the lighting, the entrances, and it's different than other sports. Like it's kind of like a unique, and it's hard to even like explain like kind of what I'm describing. But when you're there, just like there's like almost like a tension in the air for every event, just because like any second this dude could be sleeping,
Yeah.
or a female fight. They could be you don't know what's going to happen, so you're kind of on edge. Basically, the antithesis of baseball is kind of what you're getting with fights. Staring up in the sky, I'll walk around for a little bit, come back. Oh, nothing's changed, but this would be the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't really take breaks because you don't know when it's gonna end. Like there's not a time up on the clock kind of thing. Yeah, that is interesting, and it does. I guess I battle with that myself a lot too. It's like at what point do you say this isn't justified anymore? And it's sad too from the other side of it, because I think at some point too, like fans have to, bite back a little bit too. Like not everybody can keep buying into it, and keep appeasing them, because obviously where they're setting it, and if they're selling enough tickets, then they must be. Otherwise, they would change that strategy. Obviously, a big part of that problem too has been just the way tickets are sold in general, and sometimes the actual event doesn't have anything to do with it, is because of some damn secondary market that got a hold of these things and took them all from everybody. But that's a whole other deal. But yeah, just setting them in the first place, and especially I think, and it may be different than like that scenario. Obviously, I think the fight game is a pretty adult situation. Obviously, you're going there with your buddies, not necessarily the family. But for other sports, it's like it just to me, it's like how do you expect to grow your product and grow your game and continue it to the next generation if those people aren't going to have those opportunities to go attend events? Like it's almost undoable for a lot of people to be able to go to a game. And then on top of that, the way that sports have changed, we've talked about this before, like in the NBA, you don't know if that guy that Johnny wants to go see is going to play that night. So like there's a lot of things that factor into it. And I think you have to be aware of, how valuable that event may be to that person that's coming and paying that hard-earned money. And yeah, at what point do we draw the line? Because that is a thing that's getting out of control.
Yeah, I will say it was noticeable, and they do a good job of all these types of events where it's like, oh, we're gonna curtain off these sections and not show this, but just with the with all the drone shots and all these clever camera angles that producers and these networks like to use now, it was obvious there was a lot of empty seats even in the lower section, which I mean it doesn't look good on either way. However you want to slice it, we made this gate or did that. It's empty seats are empty seats, so you could say everyone's in the bathroom, but then I don't know, that seems like a bit of a stretch there in the middle of the in the middle of the fights here. And then you talk about expanding. Just maybe you're not going to the younger audience, but even you still want younger adults, 20, 25, something like that. And I mean, having $200 extra at that age, most people don't. And like especially now with everything's more expensive, it's even a bigger of an ask, because if I'm question that we'll say beyond that age, what do you think someone that age is not going to be willing to part with that kind of money? So yeah, it's probably not a good situation. I think at some point there's got to be a breaking point, and it's, I mean, you hate to miss out on these opportunities, but it's like you have to speak with your wallet when it comes to this, or whatever streaming services you have, or whatever latest sports that you pay that's seen as extra. You just got to at some point be like, that's enough, like you said.
Yeah, I think there's some definite reckoning coming when it comes to all that stuff, and it balls into a lot of different facets and different things, but certainly is changed it throughout events in general. So good picks as far as the fights are concerned. So kudos there. I did get lucky enough too to pick a winner. The old Masters golf tournament this past weekend there at Augusta. I had a little, I don't know, I just had a little feeling that Rory McIlroy was going to finally break through and get his green jacket. Of course, a lot of talk about the career Grand Slam. He had not, that was the one major that he hadn't won in his career yet. It had been very close before, but it didn't get it done. And this time it was damn interesting. It came down to the wire. But he did get the victory. I put a little money on him, and then I put a little on Sahith Theegala as well. Just because it was you find somebody with big odds and go like, okay, I'm gonna pick this guy to see if we can catch a flyer here. But yeah, it didn't work out on that side. But yeah, won a little money with that, so that was kind of fun. And I guess one thing that I was a little bit frustrated with as far as the wagering side of that goes is, I guess I don't know where as a book you draw those lines as far as those odds are concerned. Because like to me, like that's a pretty damn hard thing to pick. Like this guy's playing 4 days of golf, and he's got to have 4 really good days to win this thing. And you expect a pretty good return when you pick somebody to win. But at the same time, I realize it can't be ridiculous either, because there's going to be people, and especially a guy of his status, there are going to be people that bet on him no matter what, kind of thing. So the books can't exactly take it in the shorts. But I don't know. I thought that was interesting because I got him at plus 650 before the tournament started, which I thought was a decent return. But, for a guy that necessarily hadn't had luck at that event, you thought, well, maybe you could get even a little bit more than that. But I don't know. That's an interesting, I don't know how the hell they go about figuring that part of it out, I guess. There's a lot of guys to look at,
And of course, it's easier to say after the fact, but I mean, I think a lot of people felt like, oh, he's due, but so are a lot of people. There's no, like, it's not a, prerequisite to be a, one of the best in your era to like, oh, they have to win the Masters one year. That's not a guarantee. Like,
Yeah. No.
so yeah, for them that's, I mean, honestly, to me, it seems for the success he's had and how long he's been around, it does seem like that might have been a little low to me just because of the struggles he's had there. So I mean, it's a good play, but I would even thought maybe like plus 800 or something, just
Yeah.
because it's like here, and it almost happens like here we go
Yeah.
again. Like he's gonna piss it away no matter how big of a lead he has, and it almost happened. So
Yeah.
that was, I mean, it's like I said, good play, but it's I can't. I'm surprised that people weren't going a little higher just because thinking like the books maybe thinking like, oh, people are going to jump on him because he's every year they think he's due, and they just I'm sure somebody every year since he's been one of the top
Oh,
guys
yeah.
is just like, I'm taking him, I'm taking him, I'm taking
Yeah.
him, and I've done it a couple of times. I don't think it had to. I don't know if it was last year necessarily, but within the last few years, I know I've made a play here or there, but I'm not as close of a follower to the game as probably you are. So I usually wait till that cut and then I'll make a play.
Yeah.
A Saturday, see what happens after Friday, and then go from there because long out, I'm not gonna hit that shit. And then like if I do, I'm gonna be happy, but I'm not gonna take credit like I knew what the hell's going on, because that to me that's just one. I don't know. I kind of just one of a turnoffs of golf, and it's nobody's fault that likes the sport or plays it or does anything. But as far as you can, I'm not saying you shouldn't like it and shouldn't enjoy the game, but it's how the know-it-alls come out of the woodwork here every time there's a big event. It was the same way with like a sport like tennis, which I actually do follow fairly closely, and I've always liked. And it's like everybody knows freaking the ins and outs of the game once we do this thing, but I've seen them at Top Golf, let alone a real course, and they couldn't hold anybody's hat out there. So I don't know what they're talking about now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, when reality sets in, it is 100% one of the most humbling things that you can go out there and do, because
Oh yeah,
you think that you're good. Yeah, just go try it. Especially on the courses those guys are playing. Good luck. You're not touching their scores. But yeah, and that is honestly, if people are like, it's a sport you're going to look to play, that's the way to do it, is wait for the cut for the weekend and then look at it, because yeah, it is. I mean, like I said, it's really hard to decide who's going to do that, and they have to do it for 4 days. I mean, there's yeah, it's skill, but there's luck involved there too. Like,
yeah.
you got to have things bounce your way sometimes.
I wonder if you get a bad weather day or something. Who knows? Or maybe you get called off early because storms, and you got to end up playing 2 rounds in a day almost.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened before. You get backed up or you get delayed or whatever. So those are factors beyond people's control. So
yeah. As far as the competition is concerned, it was hell of intriguing for people to watch. Like, he starts the day 2 up, and within 3 holes he's down 1, and then within 3 more holes he's up 3. So it's like, what the hell is going on? It's back and forth, and then of course you like the minute I kind of thought, well, he's got this in the bag now. He's cruising now. He's playing well. Well, here comes Justin Rose shooting a 6 under on the day to climb back and get there to the point where McIlroy had to par on the last hole. He got the birdie he needed on 17 to take the lead again. But he needed that par on the last one to be able to stay out in front, and he couldn't quite make that last short putt that he had. It was like about a 3.5, 4 footer, something he typically would make, and misses it. And so it goes to the playoff, and you think, oh man, is this going to be another bust for him again? But he hits a great shot on the second to get himself even. I mean, both the guys played awesome on that playoff hole. But he just got a little closer, and Rose missed his putt, and then Rory was able to knock it in and get the win. So felt cool for him. I think it's another interesting thing about, and I guess this is another thing I was going to bring up about it too, is the coverage, because there were a lot of people that were giving Jim Nantz a hard time after the tournament was over. Of course, before the tournament started, he made an announcement that he will be retiring from his Masters coverage in 2036. So yeah,
right around the corner. Yeah,
we got an 11.
That's some confidence. I don't think he's gonna be
well,
around.
Yeah,
that
no
long.
shit. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not looking that far ahead, and he's much older than I am.
Yeah, no kidding. And the fact that you think that they're just not going to decide you can't do it no more, like, okay. But yeah, so an 11-year retirement tour, which is superficial on its surface to begin with. But then he definitely has he buys into the event, and part of it too is like the atmosphere that they've created around that tournament. Like it's very framed, it's very staged. Like everything they try to make everything look as pristine and beautiful as possible. The music is dictated to them what they can play on the bump backs. Like it's all curated.
It was like when people realized they were making those bird noises weren't like authentic all the way through and through. It was like, oh man, like that was kind of when people started to realize like, oh, it's not. I mean, whatever. It's obviously a nice course, and but there's some showmanship there as well.
Yeah. So and they even kind of try to. The other thing that kind of irks me a little bit is they try to dictate too what they can say. Like they always use they don't even call the people their fans. They have to call them patrons. Which is the most ridiculous thing in the world, I think. But yeah, so but he buys into it, and then I think maybe it just comes with age, and you've done this for so long too, and I don't totally blame him 100% for this, but it is his doing. Is like you get sucked into it, and then he just gets more. He waxes more poetic every time. It's like this is the most dramatic thing that's ever happened in this golf tournament. Like, oh, no, everybody's gonna remember this Sunday. And he says those lines like so many times during the bumps, and it's just like, dude, if you're telling me it's this great, at some point I'm not gonna believe you. Like you're overselling the deal. And I think that's what a lot of people were kind of pissed off about. Is just got kind of ridiculous. And of course, then you do get a little bit of the bias, polling for McIlroy because of the Grand Slam thing. They built that up big. Of course, they built up the storyline of him and DeChambeau playing, the PGA versus Live Golf thing that's still kind of.
Well, they didn't talk supposedly either. There was come on, like it's like soap opera. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Part of me wonders too with Nance, as far as that goes, is, and I would probably be like, I'd kind of be into this, and I'd be like, okay, I respect that if he's doing this like just to piss people off. Like, just really selling it. Just like, I mean, he's getting paid millions no matter what. Yeah. And, he's after the, go off TV and they're having beers and he's just, they're all laughing at everybody getting so mad and getting, worked up into a tizzy because he's just, like purposely being an asshole. Like, I'd be like, okay, I give you credit for that. That's good. But I don't think he is. I think he's literally he thinks it's like some amazing, broadcasting performance here, and he just thinks he's like, untouchable in that world. He's kind of, going into that Costas world, if you will.
Yeah, well, yeah, the guy that decides he's going to give his tie to the guy who's the most valuable player in the national championship game is probably a little bit pretentious. Like, bro, come on, get over yourself a little bit here. But yeah, the thing that got me. A lot of the bumps where it got annoying, but then the interview, of course, at the end in Butler Cabin, like he always just like goes over the top, like trying to make it out, and he's trying to draw out emotion. I get that from the guys, like, and most of the time, they feed into it, but I don't know, it was a little bit much, and I think that's where people were upset or are just kind of getting over it, I guess, a little bit to so to speak. The other interesting little note that I wanted to bring up too here about the Masters is when it comes to money and the patrons, what they're spending, because of course a lot of big deal is made about the concessions, all the pimento cheese sandwich and the peach ice cream sandwich and all this stuff, and it's such a low cost and whatever, like. We're overlooking the fact that these people spent thousands of dollars to get these tickets in the first place.
They got nothing left to spend after they made it. Well, and you have to. What do you have to like? Be picked out of a lottery to even have the privilege to spend these thousands of dollars to go there. And I mean, I understand it's people's bucket list, and it's like they're willing to spend the money on that. But it's like, don't act like you're doing them this huge favor when you've already gouged them for pretty much everything they've had. And or at least extra income. You're taking all this money and like, but we're gonna sell you this god awful cheese sandwich for $1. You're welcome, like, or $2, whatever it is, $3. I don't know, but
yeah. And I can't get over the idea of a pimento cheese sandwich being something disgusting that I'm seeking out. Like, not exactly appetizing in my book.
I've never had many bad things to say about Chick-fil-A. I'm not like a normal customer, but I do think they have a pretty good, sliced piece of chicken there. But
Yeah.
when they came out with that pimento, I've been out since then. I've kind of my trips there have been limited, and that's even after getting over the fact that Sunday is when it always sounds good. But
Yeah.
I was just like, who like people literally like scrape that off of things. Why are you putting it on something?
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty funny stuff. I thought that is always an interesting little storyline, I guess. There for me, but they're still making money, folks. Like let's not kid ourselves here. That sandwich bread didn't cost them that much.
I complained about some of the fans of the sport, but I will say this: some of the online whatever you want to call them, personalities, if you will. I was like, okay, I'm glad we're in the same boat here because of course they show a picture of the menu and they say you have, what I think what they said, 15 or $20 to spend. What are you getting? And how much is the drinks? What are the drinks like?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I said. I think they're like $4 or $5 beers, so it must have been $15 because someone said, "Give me 3 cold ones," and I was like, "That's exactly what I'm doing there." So I was like, "Okay, we got some people that still have a brain that like this game here." So
Yeah.
I was glad to see that at least.
Yeah. I mean, I can get on board with probably some peach ice cream at some point, but yeah, the beverages is probably where we're going here with this. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and this boggles my mind because I guess I don't know how many people are allowed to attend the Masters. I can probably look that up and find it out, but the amount of merchandise sales that they do at this thing is insane. So this is from sports business guy Joe Pompliano. He's well known in that world. He said that the Masters does about $70 million in merchandise sales this week alone. So that's, if you break it down, $10 million a day, $1 million an hour, $16,000 a minute, and $277 every second. They said that the largest unconfirmed single purchase was 36 grand back in 2022. I mean, I don't know what the hell you were buying.
What are you buying?
Like, did you buy the tent? Like, what the fuck? Maybe they had a car
That's
inside.
enough to get you a couple kidneys, or something like that. I don't understand that kind of. And I guess if you got the money to spend, whatever. But it always seems like people that are kind of making these outrageous things, or it's probably not money well spent, or it shouldn't be spent. But whatever, I guess it's it's your dream to do it, so spend away.
Yeah, it's just crazy the amount of money that can be made on stuff. I mean, I'll admit it. If I'm going there, I'm probably buying something. I'm a
not
glass or a shirt.
$36,000 something,
Yeah,
no.
no.
I mean, no, I'm guessing the T-shirt's probably running you about $50. But
Yeah, probably.
To get you something at least, whatever, like a hat or one of those, little ugly hats with the little flag on it, whatever they got there.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. I don't know, but obviously, yeah. As far as the play was concerned, it was an interesting tournament for folks to follow that stuff, and yeah, I was lucky enough to pick a winner there for once. So that was kind of nice. So moving on from there, we did have a couple of other topics to broach here for you this week, and one of those, this is kind of in the, I guess since we already bitched a little bit about media, I'll go here first. You sent me this story earlier, like early in the weekend, and I saw the headline, and at first I was like, "What in the hell is this?"
Well, yeah, exactly what I thought too.
And then you read the story. It's kind of a hard deal to follow because it is a bit of a he said, she said thing, like most of these deals are. But anyways, so a couple of guys that are Ohio State beat writers. They were accused of this media company that they were working for because they were doing a podcast. Sounds like they're kind of like they do multi things or whatever. So apparently they're still writing for rivals covering the team, last I knew. But for the other media side of it, like video and podcasts and stuff that they were doing, they're accused by this company they were working for basically fraud, just skimping NIL money off the top. So what was happening is they were being given money to attract players to be on the show. So it was supposed to be a deal where, okay, you get so-and-so wide receiver on the show, and you say you can pay him this, and we'll give you that money, and it's an NIL deal. It's paying him for his time and his likeness, whatever. So you think, okay, decent idea, I guess. But these guys were basically just getting guys on the show and then just pocketing the cash. Like, you ain't getting nothing for coming on the show, bro. We didn't tell you anything about that. So it sounds like that's what was going on, just basically skimping it. They're going out there and saying that this company didn't live up to their contract, agreements, and so now they're just trying to make them look bad, blah blah blah, so that they can rightly fire them like they tried to do, and they're trying to get some of their compensation back, and it's just a big pissing match at this point. But certainly, usually where there's smoke, there's fire, and it sounds like they probably were doing a little bit of this. And I guess to me, after I thought about it a minute, I was like, here you go. This is another thing in this world of accountability for all this stuff. Is like, how do you funnel this money properly, and how do you make sure shit like this doesn't happen? Because I can see exactly how this would happen.
Yeah, that's the issue, and it's not picking a side in this one, saying who's right or wrong, because we don't know all the details. It's just kind of like a claim, and I know there is like a lawsuit, but you can sue anybody for anything. So
Yeah.
whether it goes through, and ends up getting thrown out, or there's something sticks to it, that we'll follow up at a later date. But it was just more kind of those things like that caught your eye when you see it, like, oh God, and you're like, well, I'm not surprised, but also it seems a little bit brash to think you can get away with something like this, especially with, everybody's kind of in everybody else's pockets these days when it comes to college football and NIL. Always worried about what everybody else is making and who's getting what and all that. So to think that these players aren't gonna at least ask for something whenever they're requested for an appearance or something, it is kind of foolish to think that they wouldn't be like onto you of being like, I can be getting paid for this.
Yeah.
Whether they should or shouldn't, someone could say, no, I'm not going to pay you, and then they can decline. But, if there was some type of, arrangement, or at least, mention of like, oh yeah, we'll give you this, and then to not come through with it. I mean, that just, it's not a good way to do business. Eventually that's going to come back. If they get away with this, and they did do what's, alleged, don't worry, they'll eventually they're going to do this to the wrong person, or, go too far, and they're not going to be coming back from that. I'm honestly kind of surprised in them. Maybe they're just waiting for the legalities of all this to play out. But the fact that they're still employed is kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. It's like, well, either you can think of like, did they not, do what was said, or are they just waiting for it to play out? So that'd be basically the two options that you would think, because you don't want to fire somebody and then it comes back that they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And then you got some explaining to do, and you're gonna have to pay them a little bit of money out of your pocket. So it's not that. And I mean, I know everybody wants to say all the players NIL stuff, but man, these recruiting sites have been shady as hell for how long? Ever since they've existed. Those are the biggest slime balls you could ever come across. They're doing anything and everything to get money. You listen to some of these, podcasts from these places that have sites, and I know there's a couple I listen to just because I kind of want maybe some info, but most time it's like all it is advertisements and sign up for this and join our message board for this and that and this. I'm like, you and those are the people that are complaining about players making money. It's like, at least they're like putting a product on the field and like bringing money into university. You're literally like making money off of their existence, and then you want to worry about how much money they're getting paid. So that's the type of people that bothers me when it comes to like worried about these college players making money, is because you're literally like your whole livelihood is based upon their existence, and then you want to complain that they're making money off it now. So yeah, I don't, but the main point is that's what happens when there's nothing in place to say, here's what you can do and here's how you can do it. So it's not a good thing. It's not a bad. I mean, I guess it is a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe it's good or bad depending on who you are. These guys probably thought it was a good thing until they got caught. But I mean, it's just like when there's no structure to it, this is what's going to happen. And I don't know. That's maybe it needs to happen so that way people will be like, oh, we need to do something about it, whoever that may be.
It makes you wonder about the process, I guess, for that. Were they just saying like, oh, we knew you had this guy on? Were they just giving the money to them? Oh, give him the check when he comes or whatever. Like, how the hell? I mean, why weren't you just paying the players directly from the company?
That's what I don't. Yeah, that's what's kind of a little bit confusing, because it's like, well, I mean, they were in charge of like getting them, but why would they be the middleman at all? Like, you wouldn't need to. Like, if you're the one. So that's why I wonder if maybe promises were made without funds available, and then somebody ended up being the fall guy.
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah. Yeah,
Who
who
knows?
knows? Yeah, who knows? Or maybe maybe it was a situation where they told him, beginning of the season, hey, you got X amount of dollars to try to get guys on the show or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's it. It just seems odd. Like, and I think that translates to a lot of other things, not just this kind of situation. Like, there's so many other things I can think of when it comes to NIL deals. Like, you got to find a way to make this run through the proper channels and not just like, oh, I took 50 out of the till to give to this guy because he showed up at my dealership today. Like,
Right.
you gotta, there's gotta be some accountability for this stuff. If a company wants to do it reputably, I guess is what I'm saying. Interesting. I think the other thing that does a little bit concern me about that too, I guess, is are we going to get to a point where basic journalism is going to have to cost? Like, are these entities going to have to pay to be at the presser? Like, where do we draw the line? Like, because I understand that this thing is more of a, like, it sounds like an extra deal. Like, this is a special program kind of thing. It's not your typical, talk about how you did at practice today thing. But I mean, at what point do players say, oh, I don't have to do that unless I'm getting something for it? I don't.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
It takes one time for that to happen, because even with the opt-out thing, no one thought of doing it until one person did it. And like, I don't have to play. I'll sit it. I'll go, party for a month and then get ready for the draft or whatever.
Yeah.
So it just takes one time for that to happen. And I mean, it's not like the coaches are going to be support. I mean, they don't want to do the press conferences either, but they're contractually obligated, so that's the reason they're doing it. In most cases, it's in your it's in your contract that you have media obligations, or at least you got to publicly speak. It might not necessarily have to be in a certain setting, but you got to be available for to answer the questions.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't. Yeah, that's not. It doesn't even sound that crazy to me that somebody could be like, no, I'm gonna go over here because they're giving me this much money. And that's it's at this point it's a bidding war, and I'm not even same thing every time. I don't even blame the players. I'm gonna get as much money as you can while you can get it, because there's no guarantee of tomorrow. So you might be out of a job. You might be in a situation like we're seeing at Tennessee, where somebody, and I mean, I don't even know if it was necessarily the player's fault in this case. It was people around him thought that they were more of a a negotiator than maybe they were. It reminds me of I don't know if you watched the George Lopez show at all, but he thought he was going to be a baseball agent for his daughter's boyfriend, and cost him a scholarship to USC. And I was like, this I saw this on an episode one time. It's literally happening in Tennessee right now, costing him millions of dollars.
Oh shit! Yeah, I just watched Rookie of the Year the other night with my boy. So it's the same thing. The boyfriend, he's like, oh, I'm gonna be his manager. Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna manage something. It's not his career. It's those finances.
So I don't know. That's a whole deal with that media side of the world, and how that plays out, and how that, obviously, like you said, we'll pay attention to that story and try to see if something more comes of that. But yeah, lots of issues there that you got to try to figure out some way of making this work the right way. You brought it up. Obviously, it's been the big topic of the week in the college football world is the Tennessee quarterback situation. Nico Iamaleava has decided that he is going to go somewhere else at spring ball. He guess this all kind of came to a head in a real hurry, is what it sounds like, because there was, from what I've read, that there was thoughts from his camp during the December window that he may enter the portal then. Apparently decided that wasn't the thing to do, and he was going to stay. And then come spring, then they have supposed contract negotiation issues, and he skips a practice, and then of course it comes to spring ball, and it's like it all falls apart, and he just says, I'm leaving the program, gonna go test the water somewhere else. Well, obviously now he's found himself in a scenario where that might not be the easiest thing to do anymore, because a lot of these schools have already either figured out somebody else is coming in, or B, they've already got something in line from, whatever previous class that they're going to give a try to. I guess it also brings into this the whole money scenario of what is the money cycle going to look like, because maybe that stuff's already spoken for. And a lot of these schools don't even have a choice if they wanted to bring him in. So now he's kind of stuck in limbo. Obviously, you think you'll end up somewhere, and play ball, but is it going to be A, the amount of money that he was asking for, and B, is it going to be a scenario where he can be as competitive? So those are two things that are really going to be interesting for him. And like you said, I don't know that this is a him problem. It sounds like it's the people that are around him problem that were talking in his ear and made him believe that this was the right thing to do, and it doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
That's the the main thing I would take from it. It's like whether he was asked for it or not, it's like you better know that you're going to get what you're asking for if you're going to go out on a limb like this, because it's going to play out like this. And to me, it's like you want all these guys taking credit, like sources saying all these it literally like played out like through tweets and through posts and like that, like no shame. It's like literally I've like this is your life. This is what you're so proud of, going back and forth. And I'm a little bit surprised that they would move on for the fact of just timing wise, and what are they going to go pay somebody else $2 million? And it's like, how is that any different?
Yeah.
Right now, Tennessee wants to look like they're like have a moral compass, and they're like, oh, we're doing the right thing. We're not going to let anybody, what do you want, hold us hostage? And no, what did he say? No one's bigger than some. He called it some kind of T. I've never heard them referred to any kind of T. I was like, what do you, dude? You got here like 3 weeks ago. You're from Oklahoma. Like, it's not like you have some like great ties to this thing. It's not you grew up here. Like I'm not think it's like something to be proud of either. Like I'm gonna regret about Tennessee, but either way, I'm just like they're acting like they're doing the right thing, and they're all about the sanctity of the game when they've been one of the biggest what do you want to say? I don't want to say culprits because there's, I guess, no proof technically, but they've been one of those schools along with like Ole Miss and a Texas A&M that has been like basically like it's known that they're willing to do whatever it takes to get this guy on
tampering players. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like you ain't nothing special. So you look good today. Tomorrow's gonna be a different story. And then who are you gonna go get? Because if you want to talk about any like the SEC thinks what about themselves. We know what they think about themselves. So if you want to get a quarterback that's willing to play for one of those schools, you're gonna have to pay some money for it. But apparently now you have a there's a breaking point. You're not willing to do that until the next guy comes along. So it might have just been a way for them. Maybe there are some other issues. Obviously, they're probably tired of dealing with the family, maybe, and whoever was involved in that. It's like, this is our chance to get away. But it is still a little risky, even though everyone wants to say, he's asked for more money. Well, I mean, he did get you to the college football playoff. You better get there next year if you're willing to see him walk away, because this is going to be brought up real quick if you're on the outside looking into that 12-team bracket there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I obviously this moves to the whole picture of how are we gonna, how our team's gonna manage this stuff, and it comes to that whole idea of will there be some sort of a salary cap scenario or a player, the whole the sharing agreement stuff, like how are we gonna work this out? So that this doesn't have to happen every December and spring, like it's ridiculous to think that schools and the players, like on both sides of it, should have to go through this every single year to decide, oh, am I getting enough money? Can I renegotiate, kind of thing? Like, because, I mean, essentially you never agreed to a real contract to begin with. So now we're going to just every year say, oh, well, I want this number, and you're just pulling it out of your ass. Like, they don't know. Like, and especially when it comes to this scenario, I guarantee, because you got the assholes around him that they're not in the business. They don't know. They're just like, oh, I want this amount of money. So yeah, and then of course they go out there and say, well, I've heard from this school and this school that they'll pay him. You're just blowing smoke up my ass so that they'll turn around and do it for you. Like, it's just a stupid pissing match that doesn't need to happen all the time.
I always thought it was just for the pure comedy. We've brought it up a few times on this show, but just Blue Chips ages better like by the day. Like, it's literally like this is everyone thought it was just like, oh, it's just dramatization and all that stuff, and you knew a little bit was going on. But when you hear stories like this, and you can't even you got to take the numbers for what they are. Who knows exactly, because there's no way to know either way. But they say, oh, we're not going to pay $4 million, but supposedly you're already paying $2 million, so. Well, that's like that's okay to pay $2 million, but not $4 million. Like, and I get you don't want to be stuck up for more money or feel like someone's trying to use you as leverage. But you're already paying a pretty good amount according to these reports. So, I mean, I don't know, you kind of made your bed. Now you got to sleep in it type of thing. So, it wasn't like he came there for some type of, he always loved that school, always wanted to play there. Like he was he's a mercenary. He was paid to play. So, don't be surprised when he wants more pay to play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting deal. I definitely see a little bit of both sides of this thing, and there does have to be a little bit of like, timing. I think the timing issue is what was really throwing people off here, and I get that because like it's at the end of the day, it's going to suck for both of them. Like it's going to suck for Tennessee, it's going to suck for him because he's going to end up playing somewhere he doesn't want to, and somebody brought up too the fact that like. That's also, I guess, from the player's side of it, that you do have to consider that a little bit. Yeah, you want your value, but you also have to think about, like, where am I playing and who do I get to play with? Like, you might not have the same dudes to be able to throw the ball to now. Is that fun? Like, I don't know. You got to weigh that, I guess. What's more important to you?
Yeah, you brought up a good point there as far as like whether whoever side you're on, it's the time, it's just like, well, it's not like he's in a great spot either. So both kind of losing this one's a lose-lose situation. And I mean, just like you said, like where are you going to end up? You're going to go somewhere and who knows what's going to happen. But this could affect your future, your whole career going forward. You end up, playing, you might be, who knows, maybe you're at a JUCO or something because only thing we've seen since the time that he's been officially gone is the 3 teams or 2 or 3 that are mentioned have decided against bringing him in. So obviously, you gambled and lost in this case, but even though I've been, saying I'm fine with making money and all that stuff, but you still have to be willing to live with the consequence of that because it's not all, it can't just all be good.
No.
If you leave a job, for, as a regular, you just, you're working whatever, an accountant or something, and someone's paying you $70,000, and this company at tax season, like, we need help, we'll give you 85,000, and then when tax season ends, like, oh, we don't need help anymore, and you get fired. Well, that was, the choice you made, and you have to live with, there was maybe no guarantee that you'd be beyond that point, but you knew you're going to be making, so much more money in the short term. So that you got to weigh the risk with the reward there. So I'm for making as much money as you can, but I also understand, and I'm totally cool with, you got to live with whatever decision you make because that's life, and that's what you're supposed to be learning in college anyways.
Well, in this scenario too, it brings up that interesting other little wrinkle too with the whole SEC rule, that he can't go to another SEC program because they have that spring transfer rule or whatever. Like, I didn't know any of these conferences had this shit anymore. But yeah, like, okay,
for being such a amazing, and so they got some really soft ass rules for wanting to for thinking so highly of themselves. They're scared of a competition pretty much in every which way you can think of.
Yeah, yep, that's a good way to put it. Obviously a bizarre deal, and it won't be the last. I mean, this is just the first time that this on this level it's happened. It definitely probably will again. But yeah, how do we manage it and how do we handle it better? I think there's a lot that can be done that makes these things not a frequent scenario, and I think that's what most people want at the end of the day.
But I mean, you think about it, even now, it's only like one, like this is like the only one we've had so far.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so it's not, it's just it's the amount, the dollar amount that's really like,
that's what's getting.
It's getting like, holy hell, like what's going on here? And even then, it's like, how accurate is it? Because only the people cashing the checks and signing the checks really know. So you say we're offering you $2 million, it might be through this sponsorship, through this endorsement, whatever over the long term. I still don't think. For the most part, you're not just getting go back to the blue chips. You're not getting the bag of cash in most cases. I'm sure there's a few here and there, but it's probably more of a paid over time type of thing.
And I guess it does. This definitely underscores the fact that if you were one that didn't believe in the blue chips scenario back in the day, you 100% know it was true now, because all this amount of money doesn't appear out of thin air. All of a sudden we can pay all these people all this money. Like, there were people doing it before. That's why they're willing to now.
Now they don't have to be just so sneaky about it. They can just, it can just be on the open. But honestly, for the booster, for the happy and the blue chip scenario, this is like honestly like, okay, good. Now it's easy. I can just give it to you. I don't have to funnel it through here and there.
Yeah, there goes happy heading to the cash machine. What a great! Oh man, that's one of the greatest scenes in movie history, I think. Yeah, so interesting story. Well, we'll see where this goes, and there's lots of things that are floating out there, obviously, right now too. There's been all kinds of talks on different legislative levels, state and federally. Who knows where this is going to end up? I think at some point you are going to have some sort of a structure, so to speak, as far as compensation is concerned. It's never going to be normal. We know that at this point, but at least there can be some guidelines and structure on how this works and when it can happen. And I think that will maybe alleviate a little bit of some of these types of issues down the road. So we'll continue to follow the saga of the NIL world. One other quick thing on the media thing that I did want to bring up, because I thought of this as we were talking about coverage earlier. There was a really interesting moment during the Masters where after Saturday, they caught up with Shane Lowry, who is well known as like a good friend of Rory McIlroy, and he had just finished his round, and he was only like 5 shots or whatever off the lead, so he was playing pretty good himself, but he had a bad finish. He had like bogey finish, and he was kind of pissed, like, this sucks. Well, of course, they catch him right away after he's done, and immediately they're asking him about Rory. And he's like, guys, I'm not going to stand up here and talk for 15 minutes about Rory. He's like, I'm here trying to win this tournament too. Honestly, I'm kind of pissed right now because I sucked at the end of the round, and I really don't want to be talking to you anyways. And then he brought up a point that I thought was kind of valid, and I don't know where, I guess I was kind of torn on where I stand on this, but he made a mention of, like, normally in most scenarios, like in tennis or whatever else, like they have a half hour or an hour before they sit down and have to do the presser and talk to you. So, you get a little time to process. He's like, I kind of wish we had that too. And I was like, honestly, that's a valid point. Like, because it's pretty easy, obviously, to corner somebody when they're out on the course and like they just trap him right away after he's done. And it's like, yeah, you probably should, because it happens obviously in other sports. You're doing the on-field interview, but that's for the winners. Like, you're not talking to the guy that's upset until later, when it's the real presser. Even then, guys don't love that, and I get it, but it's part of the deal. It comes with the territory, but I thought, he has a little bit of a point. I think there maybe should be a little bit in most, whatever sport it may be, a little bit of a window where these guys get a chance to collect their thoughts, think a little bit about their round before they start, peppering them with questions. I get that. On the other hand, I've also been that guy that's there to cover an event, and I'm like, I want to get this shit done and get out of here. So I don't want to wait around forever.
Deadlines is probably, part of the thing. And also, I mean, you think about, I know we talked about how they, dramatize everything and make it seem like it's some, that cabin is some palatial estate. It's probably as big as a room, big as your closet at home. So that's part of it too, is the space to conduct interviews is probably limited. Mm-hmm. So they're saying we're better off going out there in the field. As far as like collecting your thoughts and stuff, I think there's, an argument to be made there, but also how many of these guys would stick around after the loss? You've seen the kind of like the Derby, they got all those little private jets parked in some field somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And those, those dudes are booking it out of town as fast as they can, especially if they lose or they know they're done. So, yeah, if you promise to stay, we'll give you that time, bro. But I guarantee you ain't staying. So, look at it that way too. So, yeah, I mean, he does have somewhat of a valid point. I think it probably wouldn't even came up if they weren't asking him about. Which, and I'd piss anybody off. Like, what are you doing here? Like, it's different if he's like maybe it was his caddy or like his brother watching him or something like that. But like he's in the tournament too. Why else would he be playing if he's not trying to win?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get that again, especially when that's the first thing that comes up. Like, dude, like, okay, ask me about my round first and how I'm trying to win, and then maybe throw one in at the end. That's fine, but Yeah, I get it. I see why that would have set him off a little bit there too. And you're right. And a perfect example of that, when of course I've watched the Full Swing show on Netflix, and that was exactly what Rory did in another tournament where he lost. He was pissed. He's like, I just left. He's like, it was better for you guys that I just left. Okay, well, yeah, that's probably what a lot of these guys are going to do, right? When they don't win. So interesting. I just thought that was a little interesting wrinkle to bring up. Certainly a topic that could be discussed further in some regards. One last thing before we wrap up here, I did want to mention the results are in for the Elite Eight. So we're carrying on March Madness a little extra long here for you because we're doing the Parched Madness, and we've gone a little bit further with some of the rounds here. So we're now down to the Final Four. So I wanted to give you the results here, the Elite Eight, and then we'll get the Final Four. Obviously, that'll just be 2 matchups, so pretty easy to get that out there and get your reaction on that. But here's what happened. So in the Hops region, these are the regional finals. Obviously, you're cutting down. You're taking home a banner for your region victory, I guess. Here, the wheat edges out the lager. So the lager gets taken down. The 1 seed gets taken down.
That's a bit of an upset there. Yeah. There you go.
So the wheat's on to the Final Four as the 2 seed there. So that was interesting. The shaken not stirred region, the old fashioned gave it a run, but the martini did squeak by. 55.6% of the vote going to the martini. So the martini does advance on to the next round. The malt region. We had the Pale Ale versus the Cerveza, another really close battle, but the Pale Ale does survive. The 1 seed moves on, so that Cinderella 6 seed of the Cerveza didn't quite make it to the Final Four, but the Pale Ale advances, so another one. And then this was a foregone conclusion in my mind. The On the Rocks region, the Margarita once again dominates over the Moscow Mule. Mule did get 11% of the vote. So they got a few nods there, but not many, and the Margarita moves on. So we've got 3 of the 1 seeds, and then the 2, the wheat.
Dang, it was chalk just like the freaking March Madness.
Yeah, I know. March Madness, no Cinderella's.
These voters need to get their hands on one of those. I mean, chiladas you were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
that's some disrespect.
No kidding. So yeah, I don't know. That sets up. So that side of the bracket then would be the wheat against the martini, and then we'll have the Pale Ale against the Margarita. That'll be your Final Four matchups that we'll put out there for you. So we'll get that up there on the Twitterverse there for you. Make sure you're following us along there at SJMBets, at Cherokee CP. I'll update the little bracket graphic for you as well and get that out so that we can find out who's going to be in that championship, and we'll solve that in short order here this week. We'll close. I'll give that Final Four probably about till close to end of the week, and then we'll get the championship fired right up there for you as the kind of middle of the weekend probably is how we'll do that. So look out for that and play along. It's been fun. I think people are having fun with it and then voting that way. And then, of course, we'd love it if you would like subscribe and share the podcast here on all the major platforms, including at our host at Spotify. And then if you would like subscribe, get the notifications on the YouTube channel as well. We, of course, provide you pics there, videos from time to time. You can find the podcast there as well. So make sure you're following along on all those locations. And we'll keep feeding you some fun here on the program. That's going to wind it down here for every day we're covering here for this week. Appreciate you joining us. That's S.J. Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.